Alright, so you guys have really enjoyed my videos about where recruits are signing, as I did where the top 25 players are going, and where the top 15 running backs are going, and today we're going to continue the trend, and go through every single 4-star 2026 guy, and talk about where they ended up going. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so there are 28 4-star quarterbacks in the class of 2026, and that's according to the 24/7 Sports composite. Our first guy is Derek Zammit. He is the number 28 quarterback in the country, and decided to end up going to Washington. He comes out of DePaul Catholic High School in Wayne, New Jersey, and they've sent multiple players off to the Power 4. Zammit is a bit undersized as he's only 6'1", and the 24/7 Sports scouts agree that he's a great player but lacks some of the high-end physical traits. But he is really solid as he threw for 2,600 yards and 35 touchdowns while rushing for 560 yards and 6 scores as a junior. He also made the Under Armour All-American game, and he will arrive at Washington probably hoping to hold the clipboard for 1 year before taking over as a starter in 2027 for them. Coming in at number 27, we have Noah Grubbs. He is going to be the future Notre Dame quarterback, and every year it seems they sign a blue chip player. With Kenny Minchey recently entering the portal, Grubbs will get a chance to move up the depth chart next year. He'll probably be third string, and coming out of Lake Mary High School in Florida, he chose Notre Dame over offers from Arkansas, Colorado, Duke, and Auburn. He was a 4-year starter. 2023, he threw for 3,677 yards and 49 touchdowns. The guy is an absolute star, and while he has fallen off a little bit in the recruiting rankings, he's still a 4-star commit and a big get for the Fighting Irish, who will hope to develop him into a future star. Jeff Brom always seems to get good quarterbacks, and Briggs Cherry will be one of the most highly regarded players he has signed in quite some time. Coming out of the Baylor School in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Cherry is the number 371 player in the nation and the number 26 quarterback. He chose Louisville over Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, Pittsburgh, and Syracuse, and ended up throwing for 2,700 yards and 31 touchdowns with only 3 interceptions. For that, he was stuck behind Vanderbilt quarterback Whit Muschamp, and Briggs Cherry will have an opportunity to compete next year, but as we know, Brom always brings in some sort of transfer quarterback, so Cherry will probably have to wait his turn. And coming in at number 25, we have Cade Kaufman. He comes out of East Kentwood High School in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I keep pretty good track of who the 4-star quarterbacks are, and Cade has seen a pretty big rise in recent memory. This feels a lot like Sam Levitt or Kattenhauser, as they got those guys, and Alan True of 24/7 Sports compares him to Kyle Allen. Kaufman would commit to Michigan State last winter, and at the time he was only a 3-star recruit, and even was starting to get interest from schools like Ohio State. While they never ended up offering, Kaufman had a good senior season, and stayed committed to Michigan State despite them losing Jonathan Smith. He'll get a chance to play for head coach Pat Fitzgerald, and will probably battle it out with Alessio Milivojevic for the starting job next year. Coming in right ahead of Kaufman, we have Jaden O'Neal. It's no secret that Florida State desperately needs better quarterback play, as Castellanos is now gone, and they honestly might go with Kevin Sperry next year. Their 2026 guy is Jaden O'Neal, who comes out of Mustang High School in Oklahoma. He decided to sign with Florida State over offers from schools like Arizona, Arkansas, and Auburn, and at one point he was committed to play for the Oklahoma Sooners, but would later flip last June to the Seminoles. Unfortunately, he got injured in 2025, but last year he ended up throwing for 1,700 yards and 17 touchdowns with just 1 interception. O'Neal has been a bit of a head case as he's transferred around a ton, but he's a good player who I think has an opportunity to compete early down in Tallahassee. Coming in at number 23, we have Brady Smeagol. I've done a full feature on him, so you guys should check that one out, but Smeagol, in my opinion, is the most underrated quarterback in the 2026 class. He decided to sign with Michigan, and coming out of Newbury Park High School, he has started since he was a true freshman. The guy has put up insane numbers, as during his freshman season, he threw for 3,400 yards and 46 touchdowns. As a sophomore, he threw for 4,200 yards and 52 touchdowns, and as a junior, he threw for 3,500 yards and 49 touchdowns. Unfortunately, he got hurt during his senior year, but Smeagol has done nothing but put up big numbers. At one point, he was a 5-star recruit and decided to commit to Florida State. He'd end up making a switch as he would sign with Michigan, and now he have to compete with Tommy Carr in the 2026 class, but I think Smeagol is criminally underrated and should go somewhere else because I think it's a bit disrespectful they brought Tommy Carr in at the last moment. As a Mizzou fan, I'm always following recruiting in the state of Missouri, and Rocco Marriott came out of nowhere. Coming out of Platte County High School in Missouri, Rocco Marriott ended up blowing up this past season, going from a 3-star no-name to a 4-star. He's listed as the number 337 player in the nation and was originally committed to James Madison. He would decide to open up his recruitment, and with him being compared to Riley Leonard, he was starting to get a ton of hype. He threw for 3,000 yards and 39 touchdowns. Last year as a junior, he threw for 3,000 yards and 39 touchdowns, and also ran for 627 yards and 19 scores. He is a do-it-all athlete, and he would eventually decide to flip to UCF instead of signing with the home state school of Mizzou. JMU always knows how to find big-time quarterbacks, and Rocco Marriott is a cool story. James Franklin has immediately brought a ton of talent to Blacksburg, and Troy Hune is the next guy up for them at quarterback. At 6'5", Hune comes out of Mission Hills High School in San Marcos, California, and is considered the number 21 quarterback in the nation. He originally decided to sign with Penn State because of Franklin and Kotelnicki, but now he will flip to Virginia Tech. He visited a couple weeks ago and seemingly fell in love with them. He ended up throwing for 2,000 yards and 19 touchdowns as a junior and had 1,600 yards and 16 touchdowns as a sophomore. He has the size and frame to be a big-time quarterback and has plenty of experience, so should get a chance to compete pretty early in Blacksburg. Coming in at number 20, we have Peyton Falzone. Ultimately, Penn State lost their commitment of Troy Hune, but they get the guy ranked right ahead of him in Falzone. He comes out of Nazareth High School in Pennsylvania, and he had offers from pretty much every school in the country. He ended up throwing for nearly 2,200 yards and 23 touchdowns, while rushing for 700 yards and 8 scores as a junior. He was also really solid as a sophomore, and after originally committing to Auburn, he would decommit on December 1st and sign with Penn State, who desperately needed a new quarterback, and he'll get a chance to compete with Ethan Grunkemeyer for the starting job this year. Getting into our top 20 now, we have Darian Coleman, who's at number 19. He comes out of Jones High School in Orlando, Florida, and committed to Miami over Arizona, Auburn, Arkansas, and Illinois. Coleman is a really good athlete who has a great arm, and apparently even started playing varsity football as an 8th grader. He ended up splitting time with former blue chip recruit Trevor Jackson, and ended up throwing for 2,300 yards and 16 touchdowns. Coleman has been playing big-time football for quite some time, and would decide to commit to Miami last year. Miami will lose Carson Beck to the NFL, but at this point, they're probably going to bring in a transfer, and if not, he will compete with 2025 blue chip quarterback Luke Nickel for playing time. Texas A&M has done a great job at quarterbacks in recent memory, and Helamon Kasuga is their next guy. Coming out of Corner Canyon High School in Draper, Utah, Kasuga is the number 18 quarterback in the nation. He had offers from pretty much everywhere in the country, and what's interesting is that his main recruiter was Colin Klein at A&M, so I wonder if he'll be put on flip watch. At this point, I don't think so. But he ended up going 38-6 as a 4-year starter, and while he's a bit undersized, he's a really good player. He ended up throwing for 3,500 yards and 37 touchdowns this past season, and last year he had thrown for 1,600 yards and 18 touchdowns, but as I said, he was injured. Kasuga is honestly one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this class, and someone I'm super pumped to watch in College Station. Another one of those late risers was Grant Lawless. He comes out of East Lincoln High School in Denver, North Carolina, and a couple months ago, this guy was a 3-star, but now he's considered the number 17 quarterback in the country. He signed with Wake Forest over schools like Bryant, Elon, and Gardner-Webb, and his offer sheet is not very full, but this is a great pickup for Jake Dickert. In 2024, he ended up throwing for 2,700 yards and 36 touchdowns, and honestly, Lawless just came out of nowhere. Every year you get a couple of these players, and with Wake Forest losing Robbie Ashford, Lawless will have an opportunity to play right away at Wake, and this is huge for them. Another guy who could have an opportunity for early playing time is Oscar Rios. Coming out of Downey High School in California, he followed in the footsteps of Aiden Childs, and he's now the number 16 quarterback in the country. He ended up signing with Arizona over schools like UCLA, Oklahoma State, ASU, and Kentucky, and Rios is a ton of fun to watch. In 2024, he threw for 2,600 yards and 22 touchdowns, while also rushing for 11 more scores. Originally, he had gone to Orange High School, and he is a true dual-threat quarterback that can excel in Brent Brennan's system. As I said, I think they lose Noah Fafita, so Rios will have an opportunity to play early. North Carolina has been stacking quarterback talent for quite some time now, and Travis Burgess is just the next guy in line. He comes out of the prestigious Grayson High School in Loganville, Georgia, and he's listed as the number 15 quarterback in the country. He committed to North Carolina over ASU, Auburn, Duke, and other schools, and he is apparently built for the RPO game, but needs to have better downfield passing. He ended up taking over as a starter in 2024, throwing for 2,200 yards and 23 touchdowns, while also rushing for 600 yards and 4 scores. Originally, he went to Whitefield Academy, but sadly, he would end up getting hurt as he tore his ACL just 2 games into this year. That's going to be the biggest question mark surrounding Burgess, And with Bill Belichick needing to step it up next year, he'll have an opportunity to compete right away, but I think he's going to redshirt due to that ACL injury. Coming in at number 14, we have Will Griffin. The Florida Gators might move in a new direction, as DJ Lagway just hasn't been all that great, but they'll also have Tramell Jones Jr. Griffin comes out of Jesuit High School in Tampa, and he's put up ridiculous numbers during his time as a starter. In fact, in my opinion, he's also one of the most underrated players in the nation, as he threw for 2,200 yards and 24 touchdowns as a junior, 3,400 yards and 34 touchdowns as a sophomore, and as a freshman, he threw for just under 2,000 yards and 18 touchdowns. He also started while he was in 8th grade and decided to commit to Florida, where he will be another talented player to come to Gainesville, but can John Summerall and the staff get the most out of him? The Kentucky Wildcats ended up signing another big-time quarterback, as following in the footsteps of Cutter Boley, they ended up getting Matt Ponatoski. He went to Archbishop Moeller High School in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he comes in as the number 13 overall quarterback in the nation. He signed with the Cats over Oregon, Bama, Arkansas, and Cincinnati. Kentucky desperately needs big-time quarterback play, and apparently his comparison is former Cats quarterback Devin Leary. He's a multi-sport athlete, as he apparently committed to Mizzou as an 8th grader for baseball, before then becoming Mr. Ohio football in 2024. He threw for 3,500 yards and 57 touchdowns, and Ponatoski is a huge athlete and the kind of game-changing quarterback that Kentucky desperately needs. I assume if Cutter Boley stays, Matt will be the backup next year, but head coach Will Stein is probably pumped to have him on campus now. Every year the Oregon Ducks sign a blue-chip quarterback, and this year's guy is Bryson Beaver. He ended up going to Vista Marietta High School in California, and Beaver is the number 12 quarterback in the nation. Originally, he was committed to Boise State after an incredible junior season. He ended up throwing for 3,200 yards and 33 touchdowns, and as a sophomore, he threw for 2,500 yards and 26 scores. As I said, he was originally a Boise State commit before Oregon would end up losing their guy and got Beaver, and he's now a big-time recruit. He was also recruited by Will Stein, but he ended up signing with Oregon, so he is hopefully the future there. Honestly, I think the biggest riser in the 2026 class was Ryder Bessinger. He comes out of Davis High School in Utah, and Bessinger went from a 3-star to now the number 11 player in the nation. This is a huge get for the Iowa Hawkeyes, who have lacked good quarterback play for a long time. Gronowski was okay, and in total, Bessinger has over 1,000 career passing attempts and more than 10,000 total yards. This past season, he threw for 4,313 yards and 53 scores, and last year he threw for 3,600 yards and 42 touchdowns. Bessinger is an absolute star, and honestly, I'm kind of wondering why he even went to Iowa. I mean, nothing against the Hawkeyes, but if you want to be a big-time passer, that is not the place to go right now. Coming in at number 10, we have one of my favorite quarterbacks in the class, and that is Landon Duckworth. I've also done a full feature on him, and he comes out of Jackson, Alabama. He plays alongside 5-star running back Xavier Crowell, who's going to Bama, and Duckworth has been putting up big numbers for quite some time. He ended up throwing for 3,400 yards and 39 touchdowns as a junior, and that came after having 2,000 yards and 27 touchdowns as a sophomore. Duckworth feels a lot like Lenoris Sellers, and South Carolina desperately needs to upgrade their quarterback play next year, and Duckworth should get an opportunity to redshirt and hopefully start in 2027 for them. At number 9, Arizona State finds their replacement for Sam Leavitt as they get Jake Fetty coming out of El Paso, Texas. He ended up going to El Paso Del Valle High School and committed to ASU over Auburn, Baylor, Cal, and Houston. This guy has been pretty great, as he threw for 2,500 yards and 32 touchdowns to go alongside 600 yards and 11 scores on the ground as a junior. He's also the Texas District 5A MVP as a sophomore after throwing for 2,500 yards and 27 scores with 13 more on the ground. His dad ended up playing defensive end at UTEP back in the day, and this is a huge get for head coach Kenny Dillingham, and Fetty should have an opportunity to play early, with them losing both Sam Leavitt and Jeff Sims. At number 8, we have Jonas Williams. USC will lose Jaden Mayava, so Williams should get an opportunity to play early there. He went to Lincoln Way East High School, which is located in Frankfort, Illinois, and Williams committed to USC over Bama, Oregon, and a bunch of other schools. Originally, he was actually committed to the Oregon Ducks before he would flip to USC last February. He ended up becoming the 2025 Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Illinois, and as a junior, he threw for 3,000 yards and 42 touchdowns. He threw for 3,200 yards and 33 touchdowns as a sophomore, and has been starting since his freshman year. He's a 4-year starter with a ton of experience and another Lincoln Riley recruit who could play early. At number 7, we have Alabama quarterback commit Jet Tamala. I've also done a full feature on him, and coming out of Millard South High School in Omaha, Tamala has been a late riser. His recruitment honestly didn't really start until last year, as in 2024, he became the Nebraska Player of the Year, throwing for 3,600 yards and 47 touchdowns with only 3 interceptions. His first year as a starter, he threw for 2,800 yards in 2023, and originally, he committed to Iowa State. They were the first school that really got on him, but then everybody else found out about Iowa State's secret, and he would flip to Alabama. He now becomes the cornerstone of their 2026 class, and with Ty Simpson leaving for the NFL, there's a good chance that Tamala will compete for the starting job, but I highly doubt he will win it, with guys like Keelan Russell and Austin Mack ahead of him. At number 6, we have Bo Bentley. Coming out of Salina, Texas, Bo Bentley has one of the best names in the 2026 class, and he's also one of the best quarterbacks. He became a huge deal after his junior year, as he had more than 4,200 total yards and 63 touchdowns. He led his team to a perfect 16-0 record and a Texas 4A state title as a junior. Bentley continued to be great as a senior and now signs with Oklahoma, and he'll get a chance to prep for 1 year before potentially taking over for John Mateer if he does in fact stay for next season. At number 5, we're going to have Ryder Lyons, who's signing with BYU. He comes out of the infamous Folsom High School, which produces a ton of big-time players, most recently Alabama quarterback Austin Mack, and Lyons chose to go to BYU over Oregon, Bama, and pretty much every other school in the country. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the country since his sophomore season, and as a junior, he became the Gatorade Player of the Year, throwing for 3,000 yards and 46 touchdowns. As a first-year starter in 2023, he also threw for 3,600 yards and 38 scores, while rushing for 900 yards and 23 touchdowns. His brother Walker Lyons played tight end at USC, and someone needs to clarify down below. I assume he's doing a mission, but for how long? At number 4, we have a top 10 quarterback. We have a top 10 player in the nation in Dia Bell. He comes from American Heritage High School, which is located in Florida, and his dad was former Utah Jazz player Raja Bell. He's been recruited since he got to middle school and was apparently handpicked by Steve Sarkisian as the quarterback for them in 2026. He played basketball but fell more in love with football, and in 2024, he became the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Florida, throwing for 2,600 yards and 29 scores, with 600 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. Dia Bell has been incredible the last couple of years, but he also comes to Texas having an injury. He'll have to work through that, but he'll get a chance to study behind Arch Manning for a season before I assume he takes over as a starter in 2027. Number 3, we have the future quarterback for Tennessee, and that's Faison Brandon. He comes out of Grimsley High School in North Carolina, and Brandon had offers from every school in the nation, but chose to commit to the Vols. At one point, he was even considered the number 1 player in the country, and my goodness, he ended up having an incredible first 3 years, as he went 29-1 in his first 3 seasons, throwing for 71 total touchdowns. Specifically during his junior season, he threw for 2,800 yards and 35 scores, and Brandon is probably the next great quarterback to play for Josh Heupel, and we'll see if he can compete as a true freshman, as they already have Jake Merklinger and George McIntyre on the roster. At number 2, we have the biggest signee in Houston Cougars history, and that is Keyshawn Henderson. He comes out of Legacy, the School of Sports Sciences high school in Texas, and originally he was just a 4-star recruit who ended up signing with Willie Fritz in Houston. He was the first coach to really get on him, and then he blew up into a 5-star who's now supposed to be a first-round pick and be a lot like Jordan Love. He ended up throwing for 2,700 yards and 25 touchdowns as a junior in 2024, and that came after 2,000 yards and 28 touchdowns as a sophomore. In 2025, he threw for 3,700 yards and 44 touchdowns, and Houston is getting an insane player. I assume if Connor Weigman returns, he will start, but Henderson will push for early playing time, and if Weigman leaves, I bet Henderson starts right away. And finally, at number 1, we have the shocker of the 2026 class, and that is Jared Curtis. After being committed to Georgia for a long time, he would reopen his recruitment last May, and then once again committed to Georgia. Coming out of Nashville Christian High School, he would end up having an incredible career as he became the Max Preps Tennessee Player of the Year, throwing for 2,800 yards and 40 touchdowns with 18 more scores on the ground. This guy's been the number 1 quarterback in the class for a couple of years now, and at the last minute, he signed with Vanderbilt. Some say it's because of playing time, some say it's because he wants to stay home, and others say it's because of NIL. No matter what the reason is, Jared Curtis flipped from Georgia to Vandy near signing day, and this is the biggest get in school history for Vanderbilt, and he'll take over as the starter for Diego Pavia, who is probably the best quarterback in Vanderbilt history now. So yeah, today we talked about where every 4-star quarterback in the class of 2026 is headed, and who they are. But what do you guys think? Who's your favorite quarterback on the list? Which of these guys will end up being the best? And what topic or position group should I do next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.